Hey there, Annie and Julie here. We just wanted to pop in real quick before we dive into this episode and announce our new show name. We're excited to announce that we're rebranding the Investing for Good podcast as The Life and Money Show. Now, this new name reflects the broad focus of our episodes and guests thus far and allows us to tell even more stories about living a meaningful and intentional life by design while also making an impact. We're extremely grateful for your support and listenership as we've grown this podcast and are excited to begin this new chapter so we can bring you even more valuable stories and insights. With that, let's dive into the episode.
I realized, wow, it created an extraordinary life. And I'll tell you the formula, but in any high rise, you have to build a strong foundation, right? And you need a good, strong backbone because, life gets in the way and you need strong skin, so like our curtain walls are always real strong. And of course you need to batten down the hatches. So you got to get the roof and the windows on.
You're listening to The Life and Money Show, a podcast that brings you the stories and strategies of people who are living a meaningful and intentional life by design, building true wealth for their families, and impacting the world around them. And now here are your hosts, Annie Dickerson and Julie Lamb.
Hey everyone, Annie Dickerson here together with Julie Lamb. Julie, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Annie?
I am great. I am sitting in our new home office. As you know, it's been a lot of construction. I've never developed a property myself, and maybe that's someday, like way down the road, like building our own dream house from the ground up. But right now, just doing renovation on the house is a big deal. All the little decisions. It's like around every corner. It's like, do you want this or do you want that? And do you want this type of faucet or that? Do you want to do it faster or slower? It's like so many decisions.
I know,
and it's intense. But it's really coming together.
Well, that's good because I know this is your first time that you've really stayed somewhere long enough to do these kinds of like renovations on a home. You guys are all like, look at you guys. You're like all grown up now, like building a home, having a family, like.
Finally at that stage in our lives. I mean, oh my gosh, growing up until now, I think the longest I'd ever lived in one place was 7 years. And we're coming up, we're here in Oakland now 7 years, but I was born in Beijing. Then we moved to Iowa, New Jersey, Fort Lee, New Jersey, which we'll talk about a little bit in this episode. Then Memphis, Tennessee, and Philadelphia and Vancouver, BC, and then here to the Bay Area. So definitely moved around a ton as a kid. And I was always fascinated by crowds and big city, which is part of what we talk about in this episode today, featuring Ken Van Liew, who is, oh my gosh, he's so many things. He's an author, he's a acclaimed educator, he's a speaker, he's a real estate coach. He created the modern wealth building formula, which he says is a formula that you can really apply not just to real estate, but to business or really to anything in life. And he has had a really, really successful run as a skyscraper expert, which is just fascinating to me. I've never met somebody who develops skyscrapers. I always assumed it was like, oh, I'll never talk to somebody like that, or our paths will never cross. But here we are, and we got to, pick his brain about, how does a development deal work and what should you look for in something like that. And his story is just fascinating.
Yeah, it was so cool to be able to pick his brain a little bit about, from a passive investor standpoint, what does it look like to, invest in a development deal? What are the risks? How do you eliminate the risks? We talked a little bit about, who's the person who might be a good fit to invest in these deals. So it was cool to dig into that. But I thought it was interesting over the course of the interview. One thing that I kept hearing him bring up was a lot of references to Tony Robbins. And, I think it's just so, relevant and timely actually to all that we have going on right now in our lives too, because Tony has played a big role in our lives over the last couple of months. But I think, when you're doing big things, and Ken is he's such a grounded person, for all that he's done for over his career. I mean, he just is such a nice, kind, humble guy. But I think a lot of that is, it goes back to like mindset and working on yourself and understanding who you are and who other people are and how you can, impact the world. And I got a lot of that out of show from him. And, he did definitely put a lot of emphasis on that as well. So yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, definitely big on the contribution and paying it forward, which he mentions a couple of times in the conversation. So just a really cool guy and very kind and generous and grounded, like you said. For the listeners out there, towards the end of the show, we do get into a little bit about syndication, which, as you know, is our specialty and our sweet spot and our passion. So if you are new to the world of real estate syndication, a great place to start is to get a free copy of our book, Investing for Good. And to do that, all you have to do is go to goodegginvestments.com/book, and you'll get all the details there on how to get your free hardcover copy. All right. And before we dive into the episode, we did want to highlight some listener love. This one comes from David98971. And David says, "You go, girls. Finally, a real estate podcast show that I enjoy. Thank you for creating this opportunity for people interested in the real estate world." Well, David, we are right there with you. We are total real estate nerds and not ashamed of it. We love talking real estate and sharing not just real estate, but all sorts of wealth building tips. So I'm glad that you're enjoying the show, and thank you to all of our listeners for your continued support. Okay, now with that, let's dive into our conversation with Ken Van Liew. Ken, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous today. Just unbelievable. I'm excited to be here today.
Good. Me too, now that you're here. So, Ken, aside from being an acclaimed author and speaker, you are also one of Manhattan's most successful skyscraper experts. Now, that is just fascinating to me because I remember when I was younger, my family lived just outside of New York City, which we were just talking about. And I remember being just in complete awe of the skyscrapers every time we went into the city, not just the sheer size of the buildings, but also thinking about, gosh, how in the world did they build these things? All the work and the planning that must go on behind the scenes. And I still, to this day, it seems nearly impossible to me to break into that world. I know very little about it, which is why we're thrilled to have you here to talk about that and everything, all of your other achievements as well. So start by taking us back earlier in your story. Did you always know that you wanted to get into commercial real estate and development, or how did that come to be part of your journey?
Great question. Yeah, and skyscrapers, which maybe I'll lead in a little bit later. I analogize building a skyscraper to an extraordinary life. And I could share that thought in a minute, but let me get into how it all started. I was a football player. I guess I could say I learned some gridiron experience where I knew how to kind of move the ball forward, if you know what I mean. And when I started, educating myself, I had a hard time because I was football and I was more attracted to the cheerleaders, and instead of studying and things like that. And it took me 6 years to get out of college. And I had a dream when I started, I was going to be a civil engineer, but I didn't know it was going to be a 6-year journey. So, I always tell people I'm like everybody else. I put my pants on one leg at a time, and I transferred, met my wife at my first college while I was playing football. We're still together today, 38 years later. And, I transferred to New Jersey Institute of Technology with a dream to become a civil engineer. And fortunately, I kind of learned how to study thanks to my wife. I met her in calculus class. And,
that's where all the best girls are, calculus
I'll
class.
tell you, calculus and physics, and I was like, and she was dressed with the lab coat, hair up. I said, she reminds me of like Lois Lane from Superman, But so she taught me how to study. And when I went to NJIT, I started to excel and I graduated with civil engineering. But I was one of those kind of guys you may know. I like to talk, get out there, make it happen. You know, in my senior year of high school, I worked on this major dam rehabilitation, and I liked construction. And, you know, I graduated and I won this award. It was a site design award where they gave you a 13-acre site. They said it's zoned 1 acre lots to develop it, you know, do the whole design. So me and my friend in 1985 did a design on it was VersaCAD back at the time. AutoCAD didn't even exist then. And we win this award. And I was like, wow, can I ever develop a piece of property? That'd be really cool. But no. I'm in engineering, you know. So I go and I get this job and I'm learning site development. And it was just about the time Robert Allen wrote a book, you know, how to buy real estate with no money down. But I had no money. I couldn't even afford a car. You know, my first car didn't start. I paid $700, you know, make a long story, you know, but you know, I went on and I started this civil engineering career. It lasted a very short time. So 6 months into it, I said, you know, I was working for an attorney at night. They said, you know, why don't you come build this building for us in Poughkeepsie? I'm like, are you kidding me? I could build a building. So I moved to Poughkeepsie. I was about 22 years old. I had just graduated, 21, 22 years old. 6 months out, I had won this award, and I go up, I build my first project, and it was like through the snow. And I learned how to like build during the winter with like building tents and heat. And
wait. When you say build, are you talking like you were managing teams, or were you like actually like in the hard hat on and like part of the crew?
Got it. Good thing. So I was hired as a project manager, project super to take a 32 unit building out of the ground. I didn't even have no idea what I was doing. I was a civil engineer. So I get up there and I kind of just faked it till I make it. One of the guys that actually did all my windows, he's still my friend 40 years later. Make a long story short, I build this 32 unit project. Here I'm 22 years old and I became like really confident. I remember calling my girlfriend at the time, my wife today, and going, I'm going to come to New Jersey. I just saw an ad in the paper. I'm coming to build high rises for the LEFRAC organization. And about a month later, after I finished the building, I'm working doing 2 33-story high rises on the water as the project super, managing like 600 men. And
wow.
I really learned how to build. Like after that, I worked for a developer. I became an expert builder. I went and worked for the #1 builder in CM construction company in the world. They restored the Statue of Liberty, and I was put on $1 billion project as a super. And I earned a license to build 100,000 square foot huge buildings as a site safety manager. Then the engineering came back, like, you know, after I failed the PE test 5 times, I became a professional engineer and I had my site safety license. And during all this time, I'm like, oh, you're behind. It took you 6 years to get out of college. You're not smart enough. I kept going to school at night. And I worked from like 5 in the morning till midnight every day for 20 years, 25 years.
Oh,
and I ended up getting 2 master's degrees. And I'm sitting there, you got all these credentials, but this doesn't show you how to make money.
Yeah.
I had the twins. I couldn't even afford to like buy formula and diapers because I was buying. I'm an engineer going, okay, 2 kids, 11 diapers each per day. That's 22 per day. So that, oh my God, that's 650 diapers I need this month, right? I'm like, and the formula used to come out of like Costco and the cart was all filled up, you know. But, you know, I used to stand on top of the high rises, like you said, in Fort Lee. And I had built buildings in Jersey. And one of my mentors said, you know, if you want to be the best in the world, you got to go to New York. That's like the all-star game. You know, you have to get out there. Once you play in the all-star game, you can play anywhere in the world. That's what was unique about New York. But that's kind of how it all started. And then I looked out one day and I had worked myself up from super to go working for large developers. I was a big shot with a lot of ego, nice suits, SVP. And, you know, I had a dream. I left that big world. I went and worked for a small little company, built it up. And in 1997, I opened up KJV Development and I developed a $17 million project, 113 bed assisted living with none of my own money and other people's experience. So I say OPM, but, you know, it was a win-win situation for everybody. And then I never looked back. I didn't know that I did the formula back then. And then as I proved it over and over again, all the way up to 2017, when we did 137 fix and flips and wholesales in 1 year, I was like, okay, I need to write this up and move on to the next show here. So, you know, that's part of my story. Got a lot to fill in, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just a tiny part, just 20 years working from 5 a.m. to midnight, just getting master degrees on the side, you know, no big deal. Just, you know, oh my goodness, there's so much there. But you alluded to the formula a few times. So tell us a little bit more about that formula that you discovered.
Yeah, you know, the modern wealth building formula, which is the book that I wrote, you know, how to master real estate investing. As after I finished the book, I was like, you know, this is more about life, you know, and that's what I was telling you about the building high rises where, you know, one day I sat back and, I didn't write this in the modern wealth building formula, but I realized, wow, it created an extraordinary life. And I'll tell you the formula, but in any high rise, you have to build a strong foundation, right? And you need a good, strong backbone because, life gets in the way, and you need strong skin, so like our curtain walls are always real strong. And of course you need to batten down the hatches. So you got to get the roof and the windows on, so that you can kind of deal with life. But the real heart of the matter and the inside is all the MEPs and the finishes. And as I built all these, these high rises, I'm like, wow, I built a pretty cool life, and I should write that book next. But what I really wanted to do was articulate kind of what I had done, and how I managed to develop a $17 million project and sit there and dream like, wow, I can pay myself 9 different ways. And if I pay myself this development fee, I'll take a little bit less equity and I'll create this entity and give these guys first right of refusal to invest. And just, I didn't know what I was doing. I had a vision to, and we'll talk maybe at the end, it's really to pay it forward. It was one of my favorite movies. And, that's just kind of how it's been evolving,
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh man.
But the formula, go ahead. You might want to ask.
Tell us about the formula. Yeah.
So the formula started off with how did I find, fund, and facilitate projects, So when I first started, I was developing and I was like, okay, how did I find that project and how did I fund it? Because I went through this whole tranche process where, I was raising 400,000 in the first tranche, 400,000 in the second tranche. And, I was like, okay, so I found it, I funded it through a $17 million process through the New Jersey EDA. And then I facilitated this whole development in 13 months and paid myself like close to $1 million. And I was like, wow, that find, fund, and facilitate thing's pretty cool. But, as you go on in life, it's really, I guess you could say, one of my mentors, a little bit of Tony Robbins, requires some personal development because sometimes the teacher only appears when the student's ready. And through that time, I had to kind of develop, and I proved it over the years. And I said, okay, this modern wealth building formula, how to master real estate investing, how to find, fund, and facilitate, and how it blankets on any type of real estate development. So you can use the formula whether you're doing wholesale, fix and flip, commercial real estate development. And as I started to say before, as I started to look at it, the book actually almost applies to every business, right? Because you have to find, fund, and facilitate any business. The techniques about self-mastery, process mastery, influence mastery, some of the things that it touches upon are so key to what your show's about, life and money, and all of a sudden I realized, I'm not necessarily a developer. I'm here for another whole reason. It's not about the modern wealth building formula. It's about changing people's life. Yeah. The pandemic, before the pandemic was that, 42% of Americans are retiring with less than 10 grand. So, my philosophy was get people to join hands, teach them the formula, figure out win-win. There's people out there with money. There's people that want to step up and lay the formula out for people to follow. And, that's where it all came about.
I love your analogy around the skyscraper and the extraordinary life. I mean, just looking at the events of the past year, I mean, those people who went through it with that strong foundation, that strong backbone in place, I mean, what a world of difference that makes versus if you didn't have that. And then, it's like the 3 little pigs blowing over the straw house, it's a very, very different experience.
Yeah. New York is challenged right now, and we're doing everything. We got to disrupt. We got to figure it out. I drove 42nd Street yesterday and I actually felt good energy. So it was nice. It was nice because there was a time it was eerie. I looked up Madison Avenue both ways and there was no buses, no cars. I'm like, woo, I never seen this before. It's like a movie.
Yeah.
Really much.
Have you been thinking about investing in real estate but aren't sure you have the time or the desire to manage the investment? Perhaps you're afraid, like we were, that you'll make the mistake of choosing the wrong mortgage or the wrong team and lose your entire investment. Well, that's exactly why we created the Goodegg Investor Club. We do the work of identifying solid real estate investment opportunities in the best markets around the country and then partner with you to acquire these investments, and then we'll all share in the returns. We'll identify the growing markets, strong, experienced teams, and the solid deals. We do all the heavy lifting of managing the tenants and the renovations, and as a passive partner, you get to enjoy all the benefits of investing in real estate, monthly cash flow, long-term appreciation, and the ongoing tax benefits. When we first discovered passive investing through real estate syndications, we realized it fit perfectly into our busy lives. We could put our money to work for our families, work less, and get more time back in our days so that we could focus on what matters most and discover our true passion and purpose in life. We've now helped hundreds of people invest passively in real estate syndications and are seeing the positive impact it's had on their lives. We invite you to partner with us by joining the Goodegg Investor Club today so you can start putting your money to work for you and get more time back in your day, because we know that when people have more time in their days, they can do the true work they were intended to do, and the world will be a better place. To sign up for the Goodegg Investor Club, go to goodegginvestments.com/invest and we'll take it from there. That's goodegginvestments.com/invest.
I wanted to go back to something you said earlier, which was with that initial 32 unit building.
Yeah.
And that you built from the ground up, and you saw the success so early on in life at 22. And you talked about some mentors you had along the way. But I'm curious, because we've had a few different people on the show who have talked about early successes. And some people say, it was great. I had this great momentum and it led to XYZ. And some people say that early success was the worst thing because I thought I could fly. I thought I could do anything. And then I hit rock bottom. So I'm curious, on your journey, how did that early success shape your journey?
Wow. Great question. I had early success and I was the kind of the go-to guy, but it wasn't necessarily always for me. And I knew that if I wanted to contribute at the highest level, I had to kind of create what I had. And, one of my mentors said, Ken, with you growing up with nothing, most people like yourself, before they're really, truly successful, you're going to lose it twice and then you're going to make all your money. So it was kind of interesting. My journey was phenomenal in a sense where, I came out of the box really great. I finished this huge development, made all this money, rolled it into a waterfront development. You may have heard of Staten Island. It's one of the 5 boroughs that, obviously you're from Fort Lee, so looking out at Manhattan, and the view was the World Trade Center. And it was a gated community where you'd walk along the promenade, get on the ferry and take it right to downtown Manhattan. And I was with Tony Robbins hanging out in Hawaii and thought, it was game over, to be woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning to realize my best friend just perished. He worked for Cantor Fitzgerald, and that my view of my development, left, and we ended up losing $500,000. And, it was really just come back to New York City and deal with, my friend's 2 kids and help lead people. It was a time in my life where, anybody could, jump off the deep end. It's like, okay, what's going on here? You have to be a leader's leader. And I remember Tony telling us, like, your feelings are based on what you focus on. And I didn't watch it on TV for almost 10 years. And that journey was great because I recovered and we came out strong. I went out and probably built close to 1,000 units with large developers and in New York City, after that. And then in 2008, when we were at the top of the world again, I had just finished 240 Park Avenue. Tom Brady came to check out the penthouse with Giselle. Was pretty cool. I was at the top of the world. We bought the toy building. We bought a city block, St. Vincent's Hospital. It was like, wow, we're going to do $1 billion in construction. And guess who our partner was? It was Lehman Brothers. So, in 2008, we lost like $300 million, $330 million in one day. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm going to be a magician. That was a hobby that I had as a kid. And I literally started doing magic for a short time before I got out of the funk, to come back strong, then open up a concrete company, do another 300 units, and then realize, I'm going to go, I had a calling, to New Jersey, to a company called Flipping USA that I partnered for 2 years. That led to the book. And now I'm just having, trying to have some fun. I got a couple big developments in the pipeline and it's just exciting.
Yes. Tell us a little bit more about that. I'm curious to know, with your background, my goodness, it sounds like there isn't anything you haven't done yet in real estate. So tell us a little bit about what are you doing now? What have you been doing maybe for the last year or so, since the pandemic has started? I'm always curious to hear how people have shifted away from what they were typically doing and how they've adjusted to everything that's going on, with the pandemic. So what are you up to now?
Yeah, great question. Because we have, a pretty decent holdings of a bunch of medical buildings that are, challenged. Fortunately, we have properties. So, for example, been able to, as part of the formula, generate fees through syndicating certain portions of my development. And, I sign myself up as a developer, sell off a little bit, it generates cash, keep fees coming in, and then we create massive value. Like one property we have is a 24-acre property that I bought a $6 million mortgage for 2.8, syndicated it out for 3.7, sold off only 30% of a CVS that's paying me like $595,000 to build it out for them. It'll be an $11 million asset when I'm done. But with that move, I have restoration of a 100-year-old restaurant. I have 36 affordable units, 20 market rate, 20,000 square foot office. And that's what I've been doing. That's getting into planning board. We're doing engineering. We're filing our second set of plans by the end of the month. I have another 13 acres I just captured. I'm doing a similar residential storage, multi-use variants. And then, believe it or not, getting ready, because I think there's going to be opportunity. Obviously, everybody's in it. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but multifamily, we'll always look at, but maybe more on the build and hold side. And as you go into the build and hold side, you'll find people that are going to want to get out, or maybe you get a campus environment and then you can build another building. So I always like to get creative with adding extra value. Last week we looked at actually buying a campus. My first thing, I just want to see the balance sheet, but it had 2 pads within the campus that, you could add value. And that's where we have a little bit of a uniqueness that I'm trying to show people. You can learn you can use the formula to do entitlement work. You could use other people's experience and other people's money to pay yourself, get yourself going, make sure you surround yourself, of course, with advisors, but it works.
And where are you acquiring this land? Is it in New York or?
It's actually, these 2 properties are in New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, New York right now, and the outskirts are happening. The city's a mess right now. It's hard to pinpoint what's happening because the true numbers aren't coming out, but there's going to be a fallout. And then there is some positives going on. Also, there's a lot of building owners that are upgrading and doing things. I was checking with some of the trades yesterday, which is a good sign, because I honestly think New York will come back ultimately.
Yeah, I see it all over the news that New York real estate's not doing too good. Do you have any buy and hold stuff there in New York, or?
No, we have some retail stuff because unfortunately, with all the units we did, we'd always sell off condos and we'd keep like the first floor. We have a Chase Manhattan Bank, a Starbucks, so fortunately, we're fortunate. I'm kind of glad, on the residential side right now. I mean, commercial struggling. Most of our tenants have hung in there because, we're giving them incentives, but residential is hard because, the governor's made mandates. People aren't paying rents. Landlords have to come up with mortgage payments. So I think there's going to be, there'll be more relief and it all works itself out. I'm a little older than you young ladies here, but, I've weathered a couple cycles and it'll work itself out. Just stay positive.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is where do you see us headed? I mean, you've seen clearly a lot more than Annie and I have. She and I have been in real estate for the last 10, 11 years or so. So this will be our first or kind of second, I guess, big downturn since we've been in it. So where are we headed? What do you think is going to happen? Because I see a lot of things that don't make sense right now, where multifamily is being overbid, single family homes still flying off the shelves, single family home rental properties flying off the shelves. Just doesn't really make a sense. Yet a lot of people are out of jobs. Have you seen anything like this before? And where do you think we're headed?
Yeah, we've never seen anything like this before. Markets are not really predictable right now because if you look at the metropolitan area, I've never seen numbers like this in my whole life. Listings, top dollar, fighting, there's no inventory, but that's not the same throughout. I do believe, even though there's I guess you'd say the excitement around the pandemic, I truly believe we're just in another cycle. It always works out where projects don't pencil out, then there has to be an adjustment. But I do believe one thing that's going to change, because in my research and the people that I work with, there's billions of dollars being shifted into single family homes development. One of our associates, literally a family office, gave him $500 million to go buy like, a large chunk of property in Colorado, and obviously I think what's happening is that the shift on the workflow is creating this frenzy for single family, because now people feel, well, you know what, I have some more opportunity costs. I'm not traveling. I have a little bit extra time. Maybe I have a couple extra bucks where I can upgrade from a rental apartment and get a home. So there's this frenzy for single families. I mean, I don't know how far it's going out, but it's probably happening around a lot of the cities. And, I think, we're going to have obviously a drop, but I actually think you're going to see residential real estate go to its all-time high. And I don't think it's going to come down for a few years. There'll be another adjustment. That's been my thought. There's only so many hours during the day. And, I ask these questions. I'm like, I should do a little more research. I just need like 28 hours in today, But great questions. Great question.
Oh my goodness. Well, darn, I should have held on to all my property. I let it go like 4 years ago in California anyway. I don't know. I'm curious, do you invest only locally, like in New York and the Jersey area, or are you anywhere else in the US?
No, I have stuff in Florida, North Carolina, and, I'm going to start moving west, but I've been primarily an East Coast guy. I've always wanted to move, but when you're sitting there, you're going, okay, well, there are not many places where they're building high rise. I guess I'm like just trying to get out of the city. My mom grew up in Brooklyn, and we were in New York every weekend, in a little railroad apartment eating good Italian food, and you never know I was Italian, right? Van Liew.
I love it.
Oh my God.
Well, our specialty is multifamily syndication. And so we talk to people all the time about, when you're looking at a multifamily property, this is what you should look for. Here's the cash flow that you might expect. Here's the cycle, how it works. But often people, when we even broach the subject of development, people are like, oh no, that's scary. I don't know anything about that. That sounds risky. There's no cash flow there. You're building from the ground up. What about the permits? What about the entitle? And Julie and I don't know too much about this subject either. Yeah. So we'd love to dig in. So when you're talking about doing a development syndication, what can people expect from that? What should they look for? What are the risks that are involved?
Yeah. And you mean someone who's trying to do it, or do you mean someone who's investing in one if you were doing it?
Investing. So like as a passive investor, if you were to bring me a deal that you were syndicating and I'm looking at this deal, how would I know if this is a good deal worth investing in?
Yeah, perfect question. So there's, and you guys are experts because, it's all about giving the investor the comfort level and his rate of returns and risk, et cetera. So on the development side, from the sponsor side, it's nice because we get to pay ourselves. We are taking a risk. We do have skin in the game. But if you're in a situation where you have deal flow and skin in the game and a little bit of track record, there's not a lot of friction in the process, right? Now, if you're going to compare like your investors to my investors, they all got the same cash, but they need to understand, the slight difference is that with the real estate, it's really, a higher risk and a higher reward. So, on like my syndication that I just did, I'm going to pay them probably like 55% return on their money. Mm-hmm. Now, the second part of it, which keeps them 30% in the storage facility, and we do a pari passu on the second raise, their return will come down probably into the 27% range. And then as we pay down the mortgage, it just graduates. So there's a very, I guess not a very, but a higher risk in the beginning because you can put seed money in. We have $1.6 million at risk on this one property if I can't get a treatment facility and water to the site. It's an island that's kind of worth $13 million after I figure it out. And I will figure it out, even if I got to shoot like a bullet across the highway. Like like light bullet, I'll be like, poof. But yeah, like that's kind of it, a higher risk, higher reward. People need, I would think not necessarily more of an education, but you want. I just always feel I like to tell people like these are the 5 terms in the operating agreement that you should be looking at. Instead of them just like like what am I going to do with this 28 pages here? Type of thing. But
so just to clarify, when an investor invests in a development deal, usually there's no cash flow, right? It's you get a 55% return, but it's not until the deal is done and developed, correct? Or what does that look like?
Correct. So the whole idea is when you do these properties, you want to buy them contingent upon approval, right? You never want to, you want to put minimal deposit down, minimal money in. You want to only spend your money on how do you get to approval to get the value. Fortunately, I do that and I add in a development fee. So I'm actually paying myself. Now, true, the investors don't get any money. We usually pay them a preferred return. Sometimes it'll go 2 years before they get any money on that, and they accrue it. And then when there's the sale event or the refinance event and the rebuild, that's when they get their pref and they'll get a little kicker. It reduces their equity. And then it goes right into like a multifamily hold almost. You got cash flow, then shooting for your next refi. You looking at IRR, and it's kind of the same. Always when I tell people how you build a skyscraper, I'm like, one floor at a time. Just act like you're building 30 houses, stacking them on top of each other.
Love it.
So I'm curious how in these development deals, as we were talking about, you said that there's a lot of risk in the beginning. What are some of the ways that you, as the sponsor, look to eliminate that risk?
Yeah. So, sometimes you can't eliminate risk when it's like utility based. Like, I have to figure out to see if like the soil will perk because I have probably a 30,000 gallon need to get rid of sanitary sewage, which I don't have a pipe to connect into. I don't have a water source. So there's like, maybe I drill to a well, create a 30,000 gallon tank, set up a pumping station to provide sprinkler for the property. Like that's how I think. But there's a big risk in that first 6 months of what if I can't get the water? Right. So we're probably at risk, probably a good $400,000. And then after that, we might not get what we want, but I know I'm going to get residential because I talked to the mayor. He needs affordable housing, but I added risk thinking like, well, you know what? I'll carve back a little residential. Give me a little 3 acres over here so I could do a 60,000 square foot storage that I'll have for free. And I'll create the sale event with 70 units instead of 80, pay us, 8.5. Like the numbers on this were acquire 4.5, get a deal at 150 a unit per townhome. If I do 80 units, that's 10 million. If I do whatever 65, that's 8. I'm 4.5, 1.6 in. So in for 6.1, sell for 8.5, pay my investor back.
My brain calculator is like, wait, what are those numbers? But keep going.
Basically just create that sale event, pay the investor back his money. Yeah. And then you just have that whole free base, like zero basis pad to develop on,
Yeah. Yeah. And so talk a little bit about what type of investor would want to invest in a development deal. Like, who's the ideal person to invest in a development deal?
Yeah. And I don't know if there's an ideal avatar. The way it started for me, when I like tee up an investor, because there's some investors that you give them 6%, they're just happy, more of a bond mentality. You give someone, hey, if the thing, falls out of bed, I need 10, then you got guys that, like to gamble a little bit. So, you're kind of playing around with people, but, most investors will be intrigued with this because it's something new. It's like a new shiny penny, and of course, when you're having that conversation, I always reverse it and trying to find out, what's your comfort level, risk tolerance? Are you just in the market? Do you invest in real estate? If the guy's coming in and, he's just totally passive, versus, hey, I want to take a drive-by one day and, see how the steel, installation's going, you're just kind of playing it out. But I think from like a foundational standpoint, you can work any investor into a development investment. I believe I have a magical formula. So, just by influencing people, but honestly feel that I could take them from hello to yes in any situation. And, but I don't know if that, it gives you a little flavor. So, almost anyone will fit in and just give it a shot. It's really just, I always say it's like a dance, you start the conversation and you just dance around a little bit and next thing you know.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. Yeah. No, it's always, after talking with hundreds of investors now myself, I understand the dance and the conversation and kind of the way it goes. I think it's always just about listening to what they have to say, and you let them talk and you hear what their concerns are and you hear what their objections are to investing in the deal. And, you speak to those and, do your best to educate them at the end of the day is what it's about. So yeah, I love it. Awesome. All right. Well, Annie, did you have anything else you want to ask Ken before we move on into the life and money impact round?
Let's do it. I'm curious to hear his answers.
All right. So we're going to ask you a couple of questions around life and money. All right. So first question is, what is one thing that you're doing right now to live a meaningful and intentional life by design?
Yeah. So, that's a great question. So I always geared my life around my perfect Tuesday, not a vacation day, not anywhere extraordinary, but where I get to wake up, do my morning routine, which is usually a workout. I then meditate, I cleanse myself, I then fuel my body. And, I just like to I have my time blocked out, but just kind of living and then spending some time with my wife at lunch, maybe go playing some sports in the afternoon, being at home again, getting in touch with the kids. That's kind of like my perfect life that I created for myself, and I just call it the perfect Tuesday. It doesn't have to be too extraordinary, but it's just where I feel great about myself and I'm having some fun because it's really, like I mentioned earlier, about paying it forward, and provided as Tony Robbins says, serving my 6 human needs and growing and contributing, as far as like love and connection and significance, those are, on the side, and certainty and uncertainty are, just something that you're certain when you're comfortable with uncertainty,
Oh yeah. Yep. You're speaking our language. Annie and I just came off of, what was it? Life Mastery. We just went to last weekend and did Date with Destiny back in November, did UPW back in October. We've got another UPW coming up. And all of that is so key to, living a meaningful life. So I love all of that. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Second question is, what is one life or money hack that you can share that will make an impact in others' lives right now?
Yeah, I have to say, take a look at the formula because it's a multitude of hacks on really how to look at anything in life, find, fund, and facilitating, whether it's a business or real estate. It obviously has the details related to real estate. But a money hack to me is, definitely get in real estate, right? You have to have, you can create a diversification in real estate. And I like it because it's more tangible. And, I would say that, and, try the formula, keep in mind, that, there's a process mastery, and that starts with mirror and modeling people. So, feel free to mirror and model me and set up measuring, and, you vertically innovate into what you want. In the beginning of my career, I would horizontally innovate. I'd know everybody, but I would never vertically innovate and build that deep learning relationship with people. And, and I just found that when you build that deep learning relationship and have like this rapport, they want to work with you,
Oh yeah. Yep. Absolutely. 100% agree. We, in a lot of our, relationships that we've created in the space and partners that we've worked with, we've definitely chosen to hone in on a couple of relationships that we feel are very valuable to us. And we, really value those, and they value us as well. So, can't agree with that more. All right. Last question is, what is one thing that you're doing right now to make the world a better place?
Yeah, the purpose of the modern wealth building formula was, I mentioned it briefly, to help people financially, but to truly bring everybody that either crosses my path or has an opportunity to bring them to their greatness so that they can pay it forward and feel the appreciation that you get when you have the opportunity to help others. So I'm really just trying to bring every person I meet to their greatness, and whatever way I can do to help them get there. That's my true why in life.
Well, to all our listeners, you heard it. Ken's standing by. He's waiting to bring you to your greatness. So Ken, tell everybody what's the best place they can go to engage with you, learn more about you, and follow up.
Yeah, sure. Just easiest way. I'm simple to get in touch with. Go to kenvanliew.com, and there's a Discover Now button that'll lead you to a free 45-minute strategy call. We can hang out, talk, see how I can help you pay it forward.
Ken, thank you so much for being here with us, sharing your experience and your infinite wisdom today.
Well, to be with 2 brilliant women like yourself, it was just amazing, Annie and Julie. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to The Life and Money Show, the #1 podcast for people who, like you, are living a meaningful and intentional life by design, building true wealth, and making an impact in the world. For more resources, check out goodegginvestments.com and be sure to join the Life and Money Show community on Facebook. And if you got value out of the show, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review so we can continue to bring you amazing new conversations.